Hi, everybody. It's at Skating PJ, and I am thrilled to welcome this very fine young man, Elladj Balde, whom I've known since he was like a wee little kid. Not only was he a senior men's national competitor for Canada, that's right, but this is a man who is just causing a sensation throughout the skating world as a show skater and as an entrepreneur with Skate Global. And we're going to get to all of that in just a little bit. But I want to talk, first of all, about the fact that you and I were going to have originally, this conversation was originally going to take place on June 2nd. And then the
Yeah.
George Floyd murder happened. Blackout Tuesday happened. This conversation was to have taken place on a Tuesday, and you were already way on top of the whole Blackout Tuesday. It took me a minute till you and I actually spoke that I realized what was going on, and we decided to postpone this conversation, which I think was absolutely the right thing to do. So, you are a biracial person, white mother, black father, and obviously racism is something that is extremely close to home for you. So tell me about this whole shift in what's happening in the world. And are you feeling hopeful? Are you feeling discouraged? Where are you at?
Oh, well, first of all, thank you, PJ, for having me. It's such a pleasure. And yes, we were supposed to talk on June 2nd, but it was a very intense time. And I'm glad that we postponed it, and now I can come in and we can have a conversation. Sorry, we can have a conversation about it and be in a space where uh, emotions don't have to be involved. And so for me, it has been
Although, you know
just
what, a
very
lot of
transformational.
they should be. Emotions should be involved because
Yeah,
this is a dawn of
yeah,
a new age. I am hoping, and I'm hoping that people are feeling emotional and they are feeling like we got to change here. So I didn't mean to interrupt, but I think that it is an emotional time, and I
yeah.
think it's a super important time. Okay, back to you.
Well, thank you, thank you. It is an incredibly important time because there's a shift that is happening right now that I'm seeing, a shift in awareness that I have never experienced in my lifetime, and I think a lot of people that are alive today haven't necessarily seen this kind of shift happen. So, the beginning of all of it was very dramatic in a way. Of course, it's like as growing up, my father being African, and growing up in society being seen as a black man, a black male, I definitely had my own experiences. I've saw my dad struggle through systemic oppression, systemic racism, and what that is. I saw that firsthand. I have been taught what that was at a young age. For a lot of people, these terms are new. This vocabulary is new, but for me, it was something that I've had conversations about it when I was 10 years old, 12 years old with my dad. He explained to me what that was and that I might experience something like this in my lifetime. I just need to give a little cough. 1 second. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
So growing up, I already knew what all of that was, and uh, you know, being exposed to it from my dad, but also, there's a lot of movies, there's a lot of documentaries, there's a lot of things out there that talk on this subject, and that and that have really incredible and real information on what this system is and how that was created and why that was created and why is it still a problem now. And so I've always been in that space growing up. I've always had a certain level of understanding of that. And so anytime there was videos coming out of police brutality or any kind of brutality, but especially police brutality, more of them were starting to come out in the last decade because of technology, because of phones being available, and people being able to shoot, to film what was happening. More and more of those videos were coming out, and every time something like this was coming out, I mean, for me, it goes deep, and for everyone in a way. Anyone who watches something like this, it can be very very painful to watch. But again, because of my background and what my heritage is and what my father is, this was extremely personal, and I always watch that, obviously not even knowing what can be done. You see it as hate, you see it as cruel, but there's always this question of, like, what can I do for this? And there was never anything really up until this time where, not that there was nothing to do, but I personally felt like I didn't know what could have been done. And this specific time is extremely crucial, is extremely important, because if this would have happened, before quarantine, I don't think it would have had the same impact that it did right now. I think the fact that we were all in already in a space of uh, reconsidering the why. We're already in a space of questioning. We're already in the space of I don't understand necessarily what the situation is right now. I don't know why it's happening, but I need to figure out what I need to do to help myself, to help others. We're all experiencing very similar things right now. We're all in the same scenario wherever you are in the world. We're all in some form experiencing very similar things. So I think already this kind of connection between people, and how that has created itself, I think was already a good state of mind to be in for something like this to happen. And then obviously being in quarantine, not working, not having time to be distracted with so many things left and right.
Yep.
I mean, we all know, and PJ, it's like when we're in our daily lives,
Yep.
we don't even have time to sit for a second to really consider what is truly happening. And when something like this happened, when it used to happen, it's like, oh, you would see it on social media for a little bit, for a couple of days, people would maybe post about it, and then we'd go back to work, we'd go back to this, and like everyone just kind of keeps moving forwards, and it's like, oh, well, it's too bad that happened, but there's nothing we can do. And so, that's that. I guess I still have to work, I still have to make money, I still have to do all these things. Whereas this quarantine is in a way, for this specific thing, has been incredibly beautiful, because it allowed people to sit with it. You didn't have a choice but to sit
Yep.
with it. You weren't you didn't have anything to distract yourself
Yep.
with. And so that allowed this space of being faced with it on a daily basis and truly seeing it for what it was. And before some of the details came out, I heard a lot of people saying, like, oh, well, what truly happened? There's always this question of, like,
Yeah.
this can't be what the situation is. Like, this person can't be that that inhumane. This person, why would this person want to kill another man for no reason? And there's always all these
Especially
questions,
when they're
and
the
that's
good
where.
guys, right?
Sorry, what was that?
Especially when they're the good guys. Like when I grew up, the thought of a policeman doing something that was somehow
I think you're
untoward.
muted, PJ. I can't hear you. Sorry.
Oh, that's okay. No, let me try again. Can you hear me now? No. Maybe
No. Is it me, maybe?
take out your
Sorry,
earphone.
1 second. Let me take this.
Can you hear me now? You can't hear me now. What is going on with
No, I
StreamYard?
can't
I
hear
had
you.
problems the other day.
Sorry. I don't know
That's
what's
okay.
happening. Let me turn off my Bluetooth. Can you hear me?
I sure can. Yep. Can you hear me?
Okay. I don't know what's happening. I don't know. I can't hear
Do
you.
you know what? I'm
It's
going to
not.
get you to go out. You go out and come in.
Okay.
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 Murray, I do need a tech. This is the second one. No, Doug, it wasn't only you. I don't know what is going on. Hi, Oren. I'm glad you can hear us both. I mean, I can hear him perfectly, and I want to continue this conversation. Murray, yes, I need a technician. You're not sitting beside me, so that's not helpful. Elladj will be back in just a couple of seconds, but
I can hear you.
Yay! Okay, move nothing. I've got all these offers of technical stuff. So, lots of friends already on this, listening to you. So, what you were talking about was the fact that you're trying to figure out kind of a way through and and what this means, for you. So back
Yeah.
to you.
Yeah, so to finish up with the whole quarantine thing is that I think it was such a perfect time for this to happen. It's a perfect blend of situations with the quarantine, with the COVID-19, and and also with social media. Social media became a platform where you can become an activist, which it never really been the situation before. Even like, years ago when Trayvon Martin something happened, we had social media, we had Instagram, but it wasn't a platform that allowed this kind of content. Whereas in the last couple years, things started shifting, and then when this happened, people realized the power of social media and how you everyone is on social media. If something's happening in the world and millions of people share it, everyone will know about it. And this shift in consciousness and this raise of awareness is has been facilitated with social media. So I think this blend of these few things have just created a situation where people finally are like, "Oh my God, I can't believe this is what's been happening in front of us," and we had no idea. And that's the thing, is that our world and the way that society is put together is like and I'm going to say this, and this is just this is what I think, but it's so well put together um, to so that people don't know about these issues.
Yeah,
It's done a really good job at hiding some of the things that have been happening and how it's been happening and how things have been running and how certain like funds go to certain areas over others. The redlining,
yep,
like that's all these things. Those are for some people new concepts that didn't even know, because you're not really taught that in school. At least in Canada, you're not taught that in school. I don't know about in the U.S., but those are all things that are finally coming up because of social media, and people finally see the truth. And I think that's what made all of this what it is. And I do feel hopeful. To go back to your question, is that I do feel extremely hopeful. And it was hard at the beginning. I had extreme moments of sadness, but then extreme feelings of hope, because I see, I just the fact that we're having this conversation right now, you and I,
yep,
and this is it's going to be out on the internet, and not only just conversations that are going to be seen by people, but even like private conversations. There's
yes,
conversations happening everywhere, and that's never happened before. It's opened up a line of communication that I think is probably one of the most important aspects of potential change. If something is going to change, this conversation needs to happen. And so
for sure.
I do feel hopeful. And I've been working honestly ever since this murder happened. um, I've been working and helping grow this group that we're working together to bring more diversity and bring more inclusion in the figure skating community. I've been in constant contact. Honestly, it's like 4 or 5 hours a day on phones, on meetings, talking about hearing stories. We have parents that come on, we have young kids that come on, we have all of us, Vanessa and Maya, who have their own experiences, myself, Asher. There's a lot of skaters and honestly skaters of color that I had never met and that I
Yep,
didn't even know exist, because of the lack of exposure that a lot of these skaters don't
that
have.
they
And
don't get.
they
Yep,
don't get exactly. So I'm so privileged and so grateful to have these connections now. And and I also had the opportunity to connect with Atoy Wilson, who I had heard of him for many years, for being for all of the endeavors that he he took on, and being the first African American to win a national championship in the U.S. and being basically one of the first leads in one of the biggest shows that was going around at the time, and him being an African American. It's extremely empowering. So having the opportunity to have conversation with him and see where he's at and where he's at now too, after all of the things that he experienced, his state of mind and how he interprets everything that he experienced has been a blessing. I've been able to connect with so many people that I feel like if I had the opportunity to connect with these skaters growing up, I would have been able to in some ways, I feel like I belong a little bit more than the way that I experienced my career. I was never able to look up to someone. I mean, I did in terms of Soria Bonali, I did in terms of, but when I was young, I didn't know Atoy, I didn't know Ty by Bologna, I didn't know Mabel Fairbanks. Those are not necessarily names that run around
Yep.
in Canada. And me growing up with my mom being Russian, I was exposed to a lot of Russian skating. And so that's what I identified with and I connected with. But there was never this true sense of connection because of the difference in just the way that, the way that we look. So I think it's extremely important to create a community where we can just all talk to each other and be
I
there
agree.
for each other and connect. And we want to, we're forming this group. One of the main reasons is so that we can help the next generation of skaters, of, people of color or minorities to feel like they have a support system, because a lot of us didn't have it. And some of the things that I experienced, some of the things that Asher and a lot of skaters of color in the skating community experienced, we never had an outlet to talk about these things. We never had the opportunity to go through that and process it. That's also something that's been coming up for me, is that I'm looking back now and I'm processing all of these things for the first time.
I'm sure.
I never had the opportunity. And also being a figure skater, it's such it's such an intense journey that as figure skaters, we identify as a figure skater.
Yeah.
That's how, that's who we are. We're figure skaters, and that's what we identify with first. And so having that identity, it's like when you experience certain things that potentially might have been racial, but you don't necessarily make the connection, because again, you first identify as a figure skater. And so you don't necessarily make the link, and you don't spend the time thinking about how this situation potentially could have been
Racially motivated.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's so interesting to sort of watch as the world is trying to figure things out. A couple of things. I felt encouraged by lots of big brands who decided to say something. I think that nobody's got all the answers, that's for sure. But I felt that, for some of the big brands, going on the record is a step in the right direction, even if you don't know what to say. Like when you and I had that conversation, June 1st, trying to figure out kind of what we were going to do. And as I said, it was before I knew that Blackout Tuesday was happening. And then, of course, right on board. And we just said, we can't really talk about skating. It just didn't seem appropriate to be talking about something like this at that time. But I am encouraged by corporate companies who are usually extremely conservative and wouldn't say, if their mouth was full of it, to be able to say something. And then the other thing that I found so powerful for me, I was watching, one of those many telethons that was on, with lots of different performers. And this one was in support of Black Lives Matter and other charities that were moving for social change. Anyway, a hashtag came up, which was silence is violence. And I thought to myself, you know what? That I find so powerful, because it's true. And, I'm the mother of biracial children. So I know I'm still shocked at some of the things that have gone on, because when I grew up, sort of middle class white Torontonian, the police were the good guys. There was never a chance of like somebody doing something bad. It just didn't, alcoholics always had a paper bag and were wearing a trench coat. Like everything was presented in a certain way. So to know that that's not the truth, and that people are human and have lots of failings and flaws, and that we have to acknowledge that it's not acceptable. I don't care what your reason is, it's not acceptable. So that's
Yeah.
my new mantra: silence is violence. And
Yeah, it is. It is.
powerful.
And there was always this discomfort with
Yep,
with this situation, with racism,
yep,
plain and simple. There was always a discomfort with racism, and I think that finally that seal has been opened up, and people are understanding that in order to move forwards, we have to sit with this discomfort. We can't, because by being silent, you just stand in your comfort, in your comfort zone. And when you stay in your comfort zone, there's no expansion, there's no growth that happens.
yep.
And so this has forced people to step out of that comfort zone and speak about it, even if they don't know what to say.
That's right. That's
And
right.
that's the important thing, is that you have to understand that just having the conversation and making mistakes is how you learn. And so by staying silent, you're not learning anything, you're not making any mistakes.
You and I both speak other languages, and it's kind of like when I've been in different countries and sort of like bumbling my way through something. I can tell you that the other person on the other side of the conversation um, tends to appreciate the fact that at least I'm giving it the old college try. So, not that I mean to be cavalier in any way, I don't, but to say, I don't know what to do. I don't know how to, I, I want to do something. So let me at least try this small spot. So it's amazing. When you
Yeah,
and I saw each other at one of the national high performance camps, you had told me about just coming back from Africa and visiting your 99-year-old grandfather.
yeah,
Unbelievable. I'd like you to sort of share that story a little bit because it's one of the ones that just absolutely moves me in a way that lots of things don't.
yeah,
And I mean, it was a long time going to see him. So tell me a
yeah,
little bit about that story, about what you learned about that experience.
yeah, sure. um yeah, it's it was definitely a pivotal moment in my life prior to going. And again, it affected my life in all the spectrums. So whether it's on the personal side, on the skating side of me, the academic side of me, the spiritual side of me, in every way, it had an effect on me. And prior going to Africa, I was in a state of mind that didn't allow me to do what I loved. And the reason why is because the state of mind that I was in was very driven and oriented towards results and being Olympic champion. That was, and I think all of us high level athletes who start, it's like that's the first thing that we identify with and we see. It's like these Olympics, and then we're inspired by the Olympics and we're inspired by the athletes that competed in the Olympics. And so that's the first image that we have. And so we right away create this dream, or this identity that is surrounded with the Olympics. And so prior to that, the year before, I didn't make the Olympic team in 2014, and it was very hard. It was very hard to deal with, but I still had that in my mind, not only of going to the Olympics, but still, like, hopefully one day being world champion or Olympic champion. So my entire identity was rooted in that idea. So it's important to remember that, because um, about a month before nationals, my grandfather, who is from Guinea, and he was around 99 years old, and he fell into a coma. And at that time, my dad hadn't been in Africa in over 2 decades, if not more. And he basically said that he's going to go. He's going to try to go as soon as possible so that he can, if his father passes away, at least he'll be there. But if he doesn't, maybe he'll get to speak to him and see him before he does pass to the other side. And so I, he mentioned that to me, and for me it was very important to meet my grandfather, and not just for me but for my father and for our whole family. Because my father was my grandfather's first son, and I was my father's first son. This connection was very important to make between me and my grandfather. It's cultural. It's how it's the importance of family, and having that connection with me and the generation after me, and then the generation before me. We needed to have that connection in order to truly feel like the family's lineage is going to move forwards with history and with this rooted sense of family. So it was very important for us to meet, and we didn't have that opportunity yet because of my skating career and because of how dedicated I was to training. And going to Africa is it's a long trip. I could never afford to take time off of skating to do that, because again, I identified with uh, Olympics. I identify with Olympic champion, world champion. That's kind of what that was my goal, and I would do anything and everything to reach that. And those were my motivations for figure skating. So in that moment when he said that to me, I was like, I got to get ready for nationals. This year, Patrick Chan is not competing, so I have a spot. I have a chance to take the first spot. It was wide open. There was a lot of us that were competing at the high level. So that first place, that Canadian champion title, was open, and for me, that was like the next step to potentially one day, not potentially, but to being a world champion one day. Still, you see how like that's all I was thinking of. There's nothing else that was in my mind besides that. So I saw that as an opportunity. Okay, I established myself Canadian champion, then the next step will be world champion, Olympic champion. And so I had to get ready for that. I didn't necessarily have time to go, even though I knew how important it was. I still didn't. I wasn't sitting in a space that allowed me to consider that as a priority. So weeks go by, and I'm getting ready for nationals. About a week before nationals, my grandfather came out of the coma, and which was in a way a miracle. And again, I got to mention, my grandfather at 99 years old had never been sick in his life. They grew up in the mountains, living in nature. They had about 200 cows on the mountain, goats, chickens. They grew some of their own food. Most of their food, they grew it there. There's no air pollution. It's nature. So 99 years of his life had never been sick. Yes, of course, maybe he got bit at some point and got yellow fever or whatever, but he never his immune system and his health was very strong. And a lot of his brothers are still alive now, and they're over 105, 106 years old, and they're walking around with chairs and tables, and just active. Seem like they're like in their 60s or 70s. It's fascinating to see. But I'll get to that. But it was very, when he fell into a coma, they just explained that his body, his heart was tired of beating. It's been a long journey.
Yeah.
He's been here for quite some time. So when he came out of a coma, my dad was like, okay, I gotta go, like, right away. I'm doing the visa, I'm doing all these things. Within the next like 2 weeks, I'm gonna go. And he was scheduled to go literally like right after my national championships. And again, I couldn't. I couldn't. Not only I couldn't commit to it, but I knew that my season was going to go on after that. I knew I was going to have to prepare for 4 continents. I knew I was going to have to prepare for worlds. So I just, there's no way for me to go. And hopefully, in my mind, I was like, after 4 continents, after worlds, like, hopefully he'll still be alive. And then right after worlds, I can go. It's my off season. April.
Yeah.
I'm going to go. This is how the skating calendar works.
Sure.
It's like, that off season time, you can take time to do these things. But but I was going to give up shows. I was going to give up all these different things, which that I was okay. I was totally okay with, which, so that being said, my dad is planning the trip, and I'm about to, I'm getting ready. I go to nationals. I was ready. I was in shape. I was, quads were looking good, felt
You
good.
were my favorite.
That year
Yep.
is like, I was ready. It was like in my mind, it's
Yep.
like, this is the time, this is my moment to take this title. And so, um, yeah. And so I get there, and I feel good. Practices were great. And then I get on the ice for competition, and it was really bizarre. It's like, and again, you can call it pressure, you can call it whatever. But I did feel like there was, now looking back, I maybe subconsciously there was something that was drawing me towards something else, because looking back now, if I didn't experience that, I wouldn't be where I am now. I wouldn't be
Yep.
who I am right now.
For sure.
And so whatever happened. It was probably, I think, the worst nationals of my career. I think I fell off the national team for the first time, and so that was it was crazy, to be honest. I didn't expect it. I didn't understand what happened. But all I knew is that right after that long program, when I realized not only was I not going to go to World, not only was I not national champion, I wasn't on the national team, I wasn't going to go to Worlds, but I also wasn't even going to go to Four Continents.
Yep.
So right away in that moment, it was very, very hard to handle. And but I had to put that aside for a second and call my dad and say, I'm coming. Like, I'm booking my flight ticket right now. We're going to go. We're leaving. I'm coming with you. And so we did that. And then as we prepared to leave, I'm going through so much right now. I'm basically in a state of completely lost as to who I am as a human being, because
Yep.
I had identified my whole self with this this idea of being Olympic champion one day, or world champion, and being the best in the world. And so I'm faced with this situation right now where I'm not even national champion. So where does that, what does that say
Who
about
am I?
who?
Who am I?
Yeah, who?
Yep.
Like, if this is not who I am, like, I had everything in my life was surrounded with this idea. And so what am I? Who am I? Why am I even doing this? If I'm not going to be Olympic champion, if this is not my path, why am I even in the sport? Because up until that moment, every single um every single motivation I had to do what I was doing was external, was for this medal, was for these results, was for the status, all these things. It was all rooted in this idea of being a champion at the world level. And so I had no idea where I was, who I was, and what that meant for me from that point on. And so on my way to Africa, I remember so vividly sitting there on the plane and being like, I'm actually glad that I'm just, because again, it's in the mountains. There's no electricity, there's no running water, there's no cell phone connection, and so I'm going to be disconnected from society for the 3 weeks. And so I was actually really looking forward to it, because I was going to be able to sit with this. And I remember specifically telling myself, I'm going to sit on it every day and ask myself, why am I doing this? And I'm not going to go back to skating. I technically, took a mini retirement, because I wasn't going to go back to skating until I found something until I found a reason to do it that came from in me, came from within myself, came from the depths of my heart. And so, and I didn't know if I was going to find that, because again, until that point, everything was external. I was trying to please my coaches, please my mom, and make my family proud. Like, all these things were the fuel for what I was doing. So I didn't think I was going to find anything at that point. And so that's the skating portion side of things, and the personal side of things. So we get there, it was a long trip. And then my grandfather lives in a village, and that was about 12 hours away from the capital. So not only is it a long trip to get to the country, but then you have to get in the car and drive literally on roads that they're not even roads. Like, we're going through
Tracks.
mountains, and
Yep.
it's like you're literally on rocks, and the car is like almost tilted sideways, and you're trying to turn a corner to get around so that you can get to where you want to go. It's not made for cars. It's made for for people who are walking or on horses, or it's not made for cars. And so we go on this long trip, and we finally get to the village. It took us 2 days to get there because we had to make a few stops.
Yep.
So we get to the village, and there's like 50 people waiting for us, welcoming us. And no, I'm not saying no, there's more than 50 people, but 50 of them or more were my family. My
Wow.
grandfather had 27 kids, and they all had 5, 6 children. And those children had children too. So there's literally like a group of 50 of them. It's like, that's your uncle, that's your uncle, that's your aunt, that's your cousin, that's your uncle, that's your uncle, your aunt, your cousin. Like, like what? And I got to remember all these names. What? I'm so bad with names already. How am I even gonna, sit in this? So we get there, and all the villages around, because it's a huge thing. It's like my father was the first one to leave the village. He left for Russia. Like, that was already a
Got
huge,
educated. Yep.
yeah, exactly. Like, through the education route, he went to Russia and got education there, and that was a huge deal because no one really left, not only the village, but Guinea in general. And then from there he went to Canada. He married and then went to Canada and is living his life there. And so, for a lot of for everyone in the village, his brothers and sisters, and everyone who in the surrounding villages, my dad was like in a way, like a hero. He got to a level of success that you don't necessarily see when you come from these areas. And so he was, everyone was waiting for him. But then for them to also know that, he's bringing his first son, with him, and that, I grew up in Canada, and they knew that I was a figure skater. There's a huge following in Guinea, because I'm like the first Guinean figure skater in history. And so they're super proud of that. And so when we show up, there's hundreds of people from all the surrounding villages that all walked. Some of them walked 7 hours to get to the village just to come and meet us. And so it was a huge, beautiful moment. My father, my grandmother, everyone's crying. I didn't see my grandfather yet because he's sitting in the house. And so we all meet outside, and we sit there for a little bit, and then we start walking in, and that's when I saw my grandfather, and then I saw my father and my grandfather walk towards each other with this sense of disbelief that they're seeing each other again. And then he sits down, and then I sit down next to my grandfather, and my grandfather, he's very well respected in all of, honestly, in the country, because he was an imam, which is he
A holy
teaches.
person.
Yeah, and he also teaches future imams. He's very involved in the community, and he built the mosque that's in the village. He built it with his own hands.
Wow.
He's very devoted, and has been a holy man for his entire life, and people look to him for when they want to learn about the Quran, they want answers, they want anything, people walk to him and go see him. So he's not necessarily a person that is very affectionate. He's perceived a certain way, he's respected in a certain way. He speaks very when he speaks, everyone listens. He's very calm and doesn't show a lot of emotion, but he's looking at me and he's crying, and he's holding my face, and he's repeating Alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah, which basically means God, thank you, God, thank you, God, thank you, God, thank you. And he's holding me, looking at me in disbelief that he's actually touching me, and that we're having this moment, and it just that type of connection has already shifted me at my core. I had, I've been waiting to meet this man for my entire life, but then to feel his love for me, even if we've never met, was life changing. Is this type of unconditional love, powerful love that I didn't even had never, except, my parents and my
Of
family,
course.
but coming with that kind of intensity, and that kind of raw, just authenticity and rawness. It was just like it spoke to me so deeply. And so so we sit there, we connected, and I spent 2 weeks out there with them, and uh again, there's no electricity, no running water. I'm sitting in the space where I'm like, I'm looking at the type of life that they live, and how happy and fulfilled they are with what they have. And I that was one of the first things that really, like, and it's like going to Africa will, and going to a third world country in general will shift your perspective in so many ways,
For
just
sure.
in general. But and I knew that, but to experience it in this way, and to experience the bond and the connection and the love that they have for each other, and the way that they support each other, and the way that they're so so loving towards each other, no matter what, like, that also brought a huge shift a paradigm shift for me, because I was like, this is what fulfills them. This is what puts them in this state of, I have enough. I am enough, and I have everything that I need. Whereas I'm looking in our society, and I'm looking at myself like Olympic champion, and like, if I'm not that, like, I'm not worthy, and like all these goals, and these things that are external, and they're all in the material world. And then I'm seeing this like this something that was real, but that we don't necessarily see this on a daily basis, this sense of community with groups of people. And I was like, that's what I want. That's what I want more than anything, this type of connection. I see that, in some of the ways that we deal with things in our Western world, in developed countries, are not necessarily to the benefit of ourselves, of our souls, of our own growth. And so I'm looking at all this, and I'm like, wow, like, this is what it is. This is truth. This is what, I from that point on, this is how I want to live my life. I understand now that, all these things that we buy and that we own, and all these things, like, none of that, like, truly brings. That was the first time that I actually understood the experience, because people say it's like money doesn't bring
Sure.
happiness, like all these things that, but you say it, and you know the phrase or the concept, but you don't actually get to understand it until you feel it. And that
Sure.
was that was that was when I, for the first time, that I was like, this is it. This is what I'm this is how I want to start living my life. And so spending these 2 weeks there, and that's on the personal side, the growth that I experienced on the personal side. But now for the skating side, I was sitting there the whole time, and like, trying to figure out, it's like, again, like, why am I doing this? I don't even know if I love the sport. I don't know, because in a way, it's like, I started the sport not wanting to do it, and my mom being so so passionate about the sport. She saw the talent that I had, and she wanted me to pursue that. And you can see, and actually, this picture on the right, with me looking up with my hands on my mouth. um i um
Amazing.
I Sorry, it's okay. This is a moment where I remember feeling so grateful. I had one of the best performances at nationals, and and I was thanking actually my sister, my oldest sister, who passed away. I was thanking her for supporting me. Anyways, just a side note. But going back to the skating, it's like I didn't necessarily know why I wanted to do this, and then I started thinking about what I truly enjoyed in all of this, in the skating, in my skating career. And one of the things that kept coming back is that sense of connection. And I was just experiencing this at a level that was deeper than I had ever experienced. And I knew that when I performed, I enjoyed connecting with an audience. So when I put these two together, I was like, well, if this is the type of feeling that I have right now, because I connected with a crowd very differently before. It was very external. I was like, yeah, show and like, performing. And I was, I was very external with my energy. But this kind of feeling that I had, and the type of connection that I was feeling with my family there in Africa, I understood that if I operated from this space and if I performed from this space, I would probably be able to connect even more and to make people feel things that that not everyone sets as their intentions when they're performing. And so that's where I started going back to, and I was like, okay, this is something that I really enjoy. And obviously in shows I'm able to bring that a lot easier than in competition. And I was already doing shows here and there, not a lot. I wasn't touring yet, but I was enjoying doing shows a lot. And so this is where the shift happened for me, where I was like, okay, from now on I'm going to try and operate from a space of connection with the human that is in the building, not the judge. I'm not looking at the judge as a judge or the technical caller as. I'm looking at them as human beings, and I'm looking at everyone as human beings, and I'm sharing my humanness with them. And that's kind of where I started shifting my mindset, and that's how I decided to move forwards with that, and it changed my career. I mean, you saw it from that point on. That year, I went and
Yeah.
I medaled at Oberstdorf, won in Oberstdorf. I started performing better. I started feeling more, more in line with my path, because I had accepted, and I also had understood that the path of Olympic champion wasn't mine. And so I shifted that to what, and not only it wasn't mine, but it's not necessarily what brings full fulfillment. I hear a lot of a world champion or national champion or Olympic champion that are still not super satisfied with their careers. And so if that's the goal, technically, if you should reach that, you should be completely content. You should be, if because we have this idea that once I reach that goal, I'll be happy,
Yeah.
which it
You
doesn't
know,
happen that way.
no, we think that once we get to here, that's where happiness lives, is right there.
Yeah,
But as soon as you get to there, you realize,
you
oh,
realize,
wait, there's something
yeah,
else.
yeah, exactly.
So
Whereas
let
happiness lives in the moment. Happiness lives in the journey. You know how they say, what's important is the journey. But seriously, it's like that's where the happiness lays. And if you're happy in that journey, when you reach that goal, yes, it will be. You'll feel a sense of content and fulfillment
Yeah.
in all these ways. But it's not going to be the moment where all of this shifts. It's not going to be the moment where you're like, all of a sudden, I'm happy now. I'm
Yeah.
fulfilled. I reached success.
So I want to talk to you a little bit about success, because what people say about you and who you are in the world is somebody who's, I mean, I've always said that you're soulful, that you're insightful. I love talking to you because you have an open heart and you're willing to share kind of your experiences. And I know that Skate Global is your company. And that one of the missions of this particular company is to try and help people, as far as I understand it, um, feel good about performing, even if they're not performers. So, and that's one of the things that you were doing. When I saw you at Battle of the Blades last fall, I said, what are you doing? Well, I'm just helping people perform. And so talk to me a little bit about Skate Global. And I'm going to talk to you about your Skate Global friends.
Yeah. So Skate Global for me is it. It started as something, and then morphed into something else. So, you know, I kind of, Liam and I, Liam Fierce and I, we had this idea of wanting to, once we retired, we wanted to continue to share and inspire skaters. We were inspiring them through our performances, through our careers, but we won't be competing anymore, and we wanted to continue to find ways to inspire the next generation of skaters.
There he is on
And
the left.
yeah, and so we kind of started talking about like how we can do that, and so we decided that one of the best ways was to do seminars and to go around Canada and teach and share our experiences and share what we have learned throughout our careers. And so that's kind of how we started, and we started doing seminars. We were trying to find, you know, the right method and the right approach. And so, you know, we were focused on technique. We were doing a little bit of skating skills. We were doing the almost like the typical seminar, and we did a little bit more where we actually performed for the kids when we were there. So we found that, you know, if us being there and you know, teaching them technique and all these things was one thing, but if we were able to show them all these things, we might inspire them in a different way as well. So that's kind of where we sat with this idea, and then it kind of started turning into something else. And at the same time, Liam was starting to get really busy with his company and the work that he was doing in finance, which he has been extremely successful in. And I'm so proud of all the work that he's done and how he just jumped into this brand new world of finance and stood up and held his own. That's just who he is. He adapts and he learns ways. You know, he's so quick at learning how to adapt. So he started focusing a little bit more on that, and so I started trying to think more about like, what is it that I want to bring. And you know, my fiance Michelle Dolly, she's a professional dancer, and she's done a lot of work in the dance community with that performing aspect, that empowering aspect. And so what we started talking about, Michelle and I, is about, you know, doing a seminar that will be focused on performance. It will be focused on helping skaters tap into the space that they potentially have never been in, their unique self, their performer self, because we're all performers in some way. You know, not everyone is going to be like Usher or Michael Jackson, but everyone has a part of them that they want to share and that they can share, because everyone's experiences are unique. And so we got this idea of like really focusing the seminar on empowering and helping skaters see that performance is such an important aspect of figure skating, because again, not everyone's going to be Olympic champion. I went through that route, you know, and a lot of skaters, unfortunately, when they leave the skating world, they're damaged, and they leave with a bitter, almost like a bitter feeling towards figure skating, because you know, everyone has this idea of success, of what a successful skater looks like, and it's like the triples and the quads and the results, whereas that's not the only way you can be successful in skating. You know, there's been so many skaters that have taken the route of just shows, and they're some of the most successful show skaters in the world and some of the most known skaters out there. And I think that, you know, it's important to know and to show that, you know, to be successful in figure skating, it's not just one path. It's not just the Olympic gold medal kind of path. And so we started really focusing on, okay, well, you know, what are the things that we can bring to them. And again, one of the main things that we wanted to bring is really to make them understand that figure skating is a mix of technique and artistry. It's one of the only sports, in my opinion, in the world that has almost like a balanced field, or it should be technically a balance of artistry and technique. You know, gymnastics also has a bit of artistry, but it's very focused on their technical elements. And I was seeing the skating world really shifting in that direction of you know, being a technical, more and more technical sport, and the artistry was kind of going down more and more, which for me was sad to see, because that's how, you know, for me, at least the last few years, that's what I connected with the most, is the artistic part of the sport. And so, you know, we decided that we were going to really try to focus on, you know, making them understand that everyone can be artistic, everyone can find their own way to be artistic, and that that's as valuable as the jumps. Because, you know, you take some of the best skaters right now, you take, for example, Nathan Chen, you know, he's a great example of balancing both really well. And if you do have the technique and then you add the artistry, well, you're just separating yourself from everyone else. And so it's beneficial to the competitive skaters, or to the recreational skaters, because in the recreational world, you know, and not only just the recreational, but even in the competitive world, you know, not everyone's going to land quads, not everyone's going to
Yeah.
land triples, not everyone's going to be on the national team. So how can you still find a way to be fulfilled with yourself and with your career? And it's through artistry, it's through connecting with yourself and connecting
Yep.
with an audience. If you're out there and you're giving your all, and you're performing, you're connecting, and you're living in the present, and you're you know, you're tapping into that space, when you're done, whatever the results are won't really matter, because you've just set your fulfillment in the performance, the actual performance. And that's, honestly, that's all you can control, you know.
So let me ask you a little bit about the people in each of these three photos. Give
Mhm.
me a couple of sentences about each of them and what they mean to you.
Well, I'll start with Patrick. You know, I call him my brother. We, you know, since the moment we met, we've been like this. We understand each other so well, and we're very similar in so many ways. Up until today, you know, we are in constant communication. So yeah, my brother, someone I looked up to for a big portion of my career. You know, we were really good friends, but also he was a great mentor to me. We trained together for a few years, and even before we trained together, you know, just seeing his skating and the
Yeah.
way that he changed figure skating was extremely inspiring. So yeah, so he was a great mentor and a great friend, and I'm so honored to, you know, to call him you know, one of my brothers and
And
part of
he's
my
doing some
family.
seminars with you from time to time, is he not?
Yeah, well, Skate Global, yeah, with Skate Global, we do a lot of work together. So Patrick, my fiance Michelle, and then his fiance Liz, Elizabeth Putnam. The four of us, we do a lot of work together. We, again, because of this quarantine time, we haven't had time to do more work, but we're working on some projects still that we hopefully will be able to release soon, or within the next few months. So yeah, so a great, he's in a way, it's like a brother, a friend, a mentor, a business partner, you know, just
He's a good
family.
guy. He's a really
He's a
good
good
guy.
guy. He's a
And
good guy.
it was always fun to see you guys backstage at a competition. Okay, so we've
Yeah.
talked about Liam on the left. Tell me
Yep.
about those two young women
Yeah.
in the middle.
My beautiful sisters.
Yep.
So Julia is the one. I don't know if the screen is flipped for you, but a lot of people always think that they're twins. They look
They
very
look like
similar. They
twins.
look they look
Yeah.
they look alike. So Julia and Catherine, both are my younger sisters. They are just so special to me, and you know, they've, you know, when you talk about support, you know, having that support, that foundation, they're the number ones. You know, they've been there since the beginning of my career. You know, I've cried on their shoulders, I've laughed on the with them. I've, you know, everything that I've gone through in my figure skating career, they went through it with me. You know, they were, when I was competing, they were, you know, nervous wrecks. You know, obviously, because part of it because of me, because at some point I was so inconsistent, so they had no idea what I was about to do. So you know, so they went through it with me, and you know, I'm so proud of them for everything that they've done in their own personal lives. You know, Julia is working on her own business right now, and you know, Catherine's in university university, finishing school or going through school. So yeah, they've just been, and the thing that I always talk about is that, I'm so grateful of how close we are, because we're close in age. We're only 2 years apart from each other, so we're close in age. But there's a lot of siblings that are, disconnected, or that don't necessarily that are not the way that we are. And I'm just so grateful of the way that we are, because we're so connected, we're so close to each other, and it's just, it fills my heart.
Heads up, people, if you are at a skating competition and Skate Global has a table, it's often the sisters who are minding the table.
Yes. Yeah, they come with me. Um, and that's the thing. It's like they're like my, people like to use the ride or die kind of phrase, but they are, they'll come with me, whatever they need to do to help me. They will do it, and same for me, and I think we have that kind of bond that, again, not a lot of siblings have, and I'm so grateful. I see a question here: who's a better dancer, you or your fiance? I will say 100% me. No.
And he's now no longer engaged. You saw it
now
here.
That's it. I think she probably heard it. She's on her way here. No, I mean, I can't even compare to her level of dancing. I mean, she's a trained dancer. She went to the Canadian Ballet School, a national ballet school in Canada. Has been a dancer. She actually started as a figure skater as well when she was a really young girl. But her path in the dance world has been just so inspiring to see, and to see that everything that she has accomplished in her career is extremely inspiring, and the way that it was done too, and the composure that she has, and the decisions that she makes in terms of what jobs to take, what jobs not to take, and the level of authenticity that she keeps with her through all of this is really remarkable to watch. There's so many people, especially in Hollywood. We're here in LA, and she's worked with so many artists, like famous artists. She's been on so many tours and famous TV shows and everything, and it's so easy to get caught up in that world of fame and like Hollywood and all these things, and that's something about Michelle that I one of the things I fell in love with is her capacity to stay true to herself. She's not going to sacrifice anything about herself, about her values, her perspectives for fame, or for money, or for a connection, or for for this famous person, like saying some things. Like it's really fascinating to see, because I know for myself, when I was young, being 18, it's like if I was around all these celebrities, I'd be like, yay, whoa, cool, like this feels so amazing, and of course, she's proud of all the things that she's done, but she's so true to what she is, and in her mind, it's like, everyone's a human being, and this person is not necessarily more special because they are famous, so I really truly admire that.
I'm going to say something that I say to all young men who are engaged to accomplished and powerful and beautiful women. You are one lucky guy. That's all I'm going to say.
I am. No, I am. And I was, I always, I wouldn't be, again, like that's another big
piece of the puzzle.
I wouldn't be who I am, and I wouldn't be here, even in my career, in my skating career. Like I met her my last year of competing, and you very well know what that was for me. It was one of the most one of the most fulfilling seasons of my entire life. Even though I was injured for a big portion of it, I ended in a way that I never would have been able to if I wasn't with Michelle, and having not only her support, but her constant reminder of
her
who
perspective.
I am.
Yeah. Here's a great perspective. This is from Gail Murphy, longtime viewer of the show. She was sitting with your mom and said you should have been a dancer the way you can move. I'm happy. you were a skater, because I'm
Yeah,
not sure I would know you. I mean, I'm not sure
yeah,
that we would know each other in this way if you were
yeah,
a dancer. I mean, I would certainly appreciate your work. Okay, my
yeah.
friend, here
I
is a question. You got it.
Yep.
I want to know. This is a picture that I found. It's actually two pictures that I put together because I'm fancy that way. Why are you always upside down?
Mm.
Seriously, every time I turn around, there's another upside
It's
down
my
Elladj
favorite.
picture.
It's my favorite place to be. That's all I want to do is be upside down. That's where I do. That's where I do my best work.
It is, I just don't even know how long did it take you to learn. I unfortunately I looked at some videos to try and download, and there was a fun video of you doing a backflip, but actually not entirely doing a backflip and sort of ending up sliding a little bit. I was laughing at you. Yeah, sorry,
Yep.
with you.
Yep. Yeah.
It is
Thank you.
got, you're welcome. So my last question to you is this. We've got some young people who are watching. It's COVID. We don't know when exactly we're going to get back to normal in terms of skating. What are your three best tips for them to get through this pandemic?
Good question. So one thing is control what you can control.
Okay.
That's for me is one of the most important lessons, not only in my skating career but in my life. I think that we often worry about all the things we can't control, this uncertainty right now, and like, when am I going to go back? Am I going to be able to do this? Am I, all this worrying about the future, about the past, is it can be very daunting and can be very paralyzing. And so one of the things that I practice myself, I try on a daily basis, is look at what can I do today? What can I do right now that is going to help me in the future? So, if I don't know when I'm going to be back on the ice, or I don't know if there's going to be a skating season, there's still things that I can do right now that's going to help me prepare myself. So I think focusing on what you can control is definitely one of the most important things that you can do at any moment in your life, and you can use that to help you all the time. The second thing I would say is staying present, just staying present. And again, that goes in line with what focusing on what you can control. If you stay present right now as to what am I doing right now, how can I fill this time in a way that's going to be productive for me, whether it's for this moment right now, or for my future self, or for something that's going to come up in the future. I think is extremely important to be. And honestly, when you're performing, when you're skating, when you're training, that's the only place you want to be. You want to be in the present. You don't want to be thinking about the mistake you just made in the past when you're competing, or the jump that's coming in the future. You want to kind of stay present as much as possible so that you can give yourself the best chance and the best opportunity to do what you can do, and to do your best. Um, and then I guess the last thing, just that goes maybe in line with that, is just to every day to understand that all you can do is do your best.
Yep.
So you can do what you can control, focus on the present moment, and just do your best at that and in that moment. And the most important thing to understand, I think, with that, at least for me, that it took time for me to understand, is that my best might be different every day, and that's
Yep.
okay. And I think that often, and I'm sure it's for all athletes, or for anyone who's very driven and wants to be successful, it's like we do our best, and like once we set our best at this level, we this is the standard now. And if we're anything below that level one day, then we've just failed, or we didn't do enough, or we yeah, we didn't reach our goal. We didn't give as much as we could have, or as we should have. And so to understand that your best will vary every day, and just to stay consistent with that, and to just observe it and see it. It's like, okay, today this is how I'm feeling, and this is what I can do today, and I'm going to stay present. And if that's all I can do today, then that's okay. So
Do you know what? We have to forgive ourselves. We have to be kind to ourselves. We have to be kind to each other. I cannot tell you
yes.
how much I have enjoyed this conversation, your honesty, your willingness to share. You are one in a million, and I'm so glad your grandfather got to meet you. I'm so glad I got to meet you.
Yeah. Well,
Elladj
thank you. And
Balde,
that's thanks to my mom. If it wasn't for my mom, I wouldn't have been in the skating world, because I tried to quit. Like I told you, and I've told everyone, it's like I did everything when I was a kid to not skate. I would hide my skates in the closet. I would tell my mom I lost them. I would lose my skates in the subway. I would leave the subway and I've forgotten my skates are in there and they're gone. And
Forgotten.
so, yeah, forgotten. So if it wasn't for my mom, I would not be here. I would not be a figure skater, and I would not have met all these beautiful people. So thanks to my mom.
Do you know what, Mrs. Balde, thank you very much for everything that you did, because he got here, thank goodness, and his skates did too. I hope we see each other around the rink sometime soon. Thank you so much for
Yeah,
taking the time to talk to us. Make sure you
of course.
follow Elladj on social media at Elladj Balde on Twitter and Instagram. Make sure you visit skateglobal.ca and go to their Facebook page. There's
Yeah.
always something new that's going on. No doubt you will see Elladj one of these times. I know that I will too. In the meantime, please follow me on Facebook and on Twitter and Instagram as well. And if you can subscribe to my YouTube channel, I want to get to 2,000 subscribers this weekend. Elladj, what can you do? I'm 20 away. That's all I need. 20.
20?
Yeah.
I'm gonna make sure some of my followers come and follow you.
Love it.
That's
and
it.
I'll make sure
That's
mine
what we're
follow
gonna
you
do.
too. Thank you so much, kiddo. I'll talk to you soon.
Thank
Bye,
you.
everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.